All right, guys, welcome back to another podcast. And today I've got another special guest. Today we have, I'm just going to name some of his accolades that he's achieved through his athletic career. So he's a 3,000 metre indoor UK champion, 10,000 metre outdoor UK champion, represented GB at the World Indoor 3,000 metres. He's also represented Great Britain over the 10,000. He's represented England at the Commonwealth Games over 10k. He has personal bests of 3:41 over the 1500. He's a sub 4 miler with 3:58, 7:46 over the 3000, 13:31 over 5000, 28:42 over the 10,000, 62 minutes and 23 seconds over the half marathon, and an amazing Olympic qualifier of 2 hours, 10 minutes and 3 seconds over the marathon. Without further ado, I'm going to bring to you professional New Balance athlete with Team New Balance Manchester and OTE, Mr. Jonny Mellor. How you doing, mate?
Very well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me on.
Not a problem. How you been training? How's things been going during lockdown?
Yeah, it's been good, to be fair. You know, I know it's a very strange time for so many people. But yeah, I can't complain. Everything's been good. I did get a bit of sickness early on, but recovered from that. And yeah, other than that, things are going well.
Not corona though? Not corona sickness?
Who knows? Who knows? I did the session with your boy Adam Craig on the day. I started feeling really rough. And, I was moaning probably more than normal. And I think Adam probably thought, what's going on with him? But I was like, you know, really, really struggling. You know, real stink of a session. And then when I rang Sophie, I was like, how do you feel? And she was like, yeah, I don't feel too good either. And then both of us were pretty sick for a week. So who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. No, it's, you know, are you in high volume? Are you sort of in marathon training just now, or have you brought it down a little bit because of the uncertainty just now?
Yeah, definitely. I'm certainly not full gas, ticking over. I'm definitely not, you know, hitting the sort of mileage that I would normally hit or the sessions that I would normally hit. So yeah, I think kind of just given the uncertainty, we just still don't know when we're going to be back out there racing. So I think, yeah, we're not taking any major risks at the moment. We're just keeping the fitness up, keeping an eye ahead of the future. But at the moment, yeah, not pushing too hard.
Yeah, and have you had any word, you know, sort of through the grapevine with national governing body or any sort of race organisers to when you'd be thinking to open up your race account again? Would it be, you know, late 2020, early 2021? What's been sort of been said, and is there anything in the pipeline?
No, to be honest, just as much in the dark as everybody else. We just don't know. And, you know, I don't think the race organisers know at the moment, which is obviously a really hard thing for them as well. So yeah, I don't know. Just got to be ready when the time comes. So I imagine it could well be London. If we run London Marathon in October, that'll be my first race back, I imagine. But we'll see.
Brilliant, good. That's what I like to hear. And you know, you're also I didn't mention it, but you're also an online running coach as well.
Yep.
And you know, for listeners that are going to be listening to this podcast, and for your athletes, I'm sure that have maybe been suffering with a little bit of, you know, struggling with a little bit of motivation just now during the current climate. Is there anything that you say to your guys? Is there any advice that you would give to, you know, the listeners here that are, you know, maybe getting a little bit down and a little bit demotivated? What would you say to help them stay motivated during lockdown? What would you advise?
Yeah, I mean, I guess everyone's different. People have different reasons why they run, what motivates them. And you've got to find out what works well for you. I think focusing on the process at the moment and what you can control is going to be beneficial longer term. I think actually mixing things up for me, that's what I kind of been recommending to the guys that I work with, running in different places. And obviously now we can do that, you know, trying some different distances over the virtual races, you know, different terrains. Maybe if you've not been running off road before, now's a great time to give it a go. I think, yeah, just kind of enjoy it as much as you can. I know it's frustrating. I know it's hard not having that end goal, but now's a perfect opportunity to work on some weaknesses, start getting into good routines, good habits, you know, even if that means spending a bit more time foam rolling before a run, that kind of stuff. Because if you're saving time on your commute, you know, it's a perfect opportunity to start spending a bit more time on the smaller things, you know, not just the training, but, you know, stretching, all that kind of thing, your nutrition, planning ahead. So, yeah, I think working on weaknesses and for some people it's virtual races, and I appreciate that's not for everybody. But it's part, it's a way to, monitor training, monitor progression, see how you're getting on. And also it's, sometimes you can't beat just pushing yourself to the max, and you can't always do that in training, but you can do if you're doing a sort of virtual option.
Yeah. And is there anything in your training plan that helps you stay focused in the current situation? Are you also very process orientated?
Yeah, I think so. And, for me, it's slightly different because I guess running marathons, so I'm thinking longer term and ahead, for the marathons and, of course, what happens next year. So for me, it's kind of, I just want to make sure I'm staying healthy. I'm just looking forward to getting back out there racing, obviously, but I'm just taking over for the time being and focusing on that marathon down the line.
Good. And, you ran an absolute stormer, 2 hours, 10 minutes and 3 seconds. You book your ticket, you're thinking Tokyo 2020 this year, and everything's been postponed now to the 23rd of July 2021 to the 8th of August. Where is your head at in terms of running the Olympic time but not being able to compete this year? Will you have to run another Olympic time before July 2021? What's the protocol there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie, it's obviously frustrating, but I wasn't on the plane. I obviously had to wait on the outcome of London, so I'd done what I had to do. I ran my time, so it was by no means that I was guaranteed to go to the Olympics. But yeah, again, I'm not entirely sure, but I would imagine I will have to go again, simply because I think there's so many top guys out there that I think London next year, it could, if the weather's good, it could be a few guys that go under 2:11:30. But who knows what's going to happen. I definitely want to do another marathon before then, whether that's a fast marathon, whether, we just don't know yet for sure. But I think I'll have to run the time again. You've got to prove, got to prove fitness somehow. But it'd just be nice to know what that is, what I have to do to prove fitness, that kind of thing, if I chose not to do London next year. So yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating for a lot of people. I'm sure people like Callum, who's obviously already in that team, he's been pre-selected, and I'm sure he was, really looking forward to challenging for a medal this summer. So there's people obviously, in the same position.
Yeah. And, going to Seville instead of, were you still planning on doing the London Marathon in April whilst still when you ran your Olympic qualifier in Seville? Were you still looking to compete in April in the London Marathon?
No, I went all in. I put all my eggs in the Seville basket, so I wasn't going to run London. I sat down with Steve, my coach, and you're my manager, and we kind of decided that we wanted to get the time. I've done London 3 years in a row now, and everyone knows the weather can be really unpredictable. It's a trial race; anything can happen. It could be a tactical race, in which case no one runs the time. So I'd kind of fully committed to running the time. And that's first and foremost what you need to do, get the time, and then go from there. So, yeah, I wasn't going to run London. I was just going to see what happens, basically. So, yeah, I went all in for Seville, really, to get the time there.
Good man. And
little did we know what was going to happen down the line.
Yeah. So, what right now I'm looking at, just imagining if you didn't do Seville and you waited for London, like a lot of people like myself and others were doing. Now, if we paint a scenario here that if you never knew that you had that 2:10 inside you, I know that you could be looking at this and going, I'm a bit pissed. I'm not going to lie, I'm a bit pissed off here. But also the fact that you now know, like, you've clocked a 2:10. You're now shooting for something sub 2. I'm guessing you want to shoot for sub 2:10 now. Do you think that, maybe that's gave you confidence going into your next marathon? I know that Tokyo 2021 is a little bit far off, but the fact that you've clocked that and it's gave you this real confidence to maybe attack even more in another marathon. Do you think that that's gave you that good self-belief that you're ready to book your ticket again on the plane?
Yeah, 100%. I think you just hit the nail on the head. Like, being able to do that just proved to myself, and I guess to other people around me, that I can do it. I can put myself in the mix. like a lot of people, I was kind of, we dream about going to the Olympics and competing at the Olympics. It's like the pinnacle of the sport for me. I thought I could run the time. I honestly generally did think I could run 2:11:30, but I also think I've been in that shape before, and I'd messed up on the day, whether that's through pacing, more often than not, it's been fueling. So I believe I could have run 2:11:30. Could I have broke 2:10? I don't know. I didn't think I could have done beforehand, but now, yeah, I want to run a 2:0 something. I want to close that gap to, the likes of Callum. So yeah, it's definitely given me the confidence, but it's also given me the motivation to kick on now to the next level again.
Yeah.
So why, without having the race and stuff now, is frustrating, because that would have been the perfect opportunity to kind of push on over shorter distances, I guess. But what will be will be.
Yeah, because sometimes I do believe that sometimes things happen for a reason, and if you were to wait to London, now it being extended all the way to October the 4th, and you never went to Seville, then you would have never known what Jonny Mellor was capable of. And so you've been able to see what you're capable of, and like you said, you're now going to be chasing, those 2:0 barriers now, which is incredible. So I know that it can be a frustrating time, but I think, things happen for a reason, and this is, like you said, propelled you on to achieving greater heights. And with the Seville Marathon, you said you've done London a few times and the weather's been unpredictable. How was the Seville Marathon? Because I guess in my eyes it's not one that's overly talked about.
Yeah. And
you went there and you absolutely crushed it. How was the Seville Marathon?
It was honestly fantastic. Like, for me, it's faster than Berlin, and like everyone goes on about Berlin being the fastest marathon in the world, but I loved it. Like, I'd heard good things about it before, but the main thing was obviously the pace, the group that was being formed in Seville. So myself and Malcolm Hicks and a German guy, we got together, we discussed, like, we all needed the times for our respective countries, and we kind of looked at Seville as being an option, just to get that time within that window, obviously, and ahead of, because you've always got then, in the marathon build up, anything can happen. You can pick up an injury, you can get to halfway in the race itself and just be having a bad day. So I always potentially then had another option later in the window, later in the spring if I needed as well. So I think Seville, February, the weather's always good. I'd seen other people run well there before, and I just think it just fit. It ticked all the boxes. Give me a good window after Berlin in September to kind of prepare for it. We were going away to Albuquerque in January to train, so everything kind of worked out well for Seville and the timing of it. And I think, as I said, having a really good field there, knowing that there's going to be another group of lads that we were going to work together and, go for that time, sold it for me. So, yeah, I think there's a number of reasons, but yeah, a fantastic race. It really was. Like, I paced Valencia in December, so paced Charlie Hulson and Andy Davies in December. That was also really good, similar weather, similar, course, but it was like literally so flat, Seville. You got, it's just good crowds, everything about it was a really good, well-organised race.
Yeah, because so you feel that Seville is one of those ones that's maybe a little bit underrated towards those, big global, having to go into the ballot and all them sort of events. You're thinking that one of these is like the sort of the dark horse that you can go there and it's a great race, and it's one that you would recommend for other marathoners to do.
Definitely, and I think, part of it's obviously not having the budget. They don't have the budget to go and get someone like Eliud Kipchoge to go there and race. So, it's very hard. But even as a recreational runner, Seville, you can get an EasyJet flight there, something like that, dead cheap, dead easy. Beautiful city, really good sort of scene afterwards. It's just a good place to be. And I say it's always good to see the sunshine in February as well.
Absolutely, and so that was really interesting. You were talking about making that move towards doing Seville. I don't know why I keep saying I think Sevilla because of the football team, I think it is. And trusting Steve with the Seville Marathon and possibly missing the London Marathon. Now that you are doing it on October 4th, but it shows a real trust and a real good relationship and faith in your coach. How is your relationship with Steve?
Yeah, I think it's like an interesting relationship. We've been working together now for nearly 6 years, so yeah, I do trust him 100%. And I think at first, I'll be the first to admit, I wasn't sure whether missing London was the right idea. When I spoke to Steve and Yuri, and they were like, no, we think that this is the best option for you to get the time, blah, blah. So yeah, I do trust him fully, and it's a good relationship because, he was an usher at my wedding, but at the same time, he's not afraid to give me a bollocking if I need it, and I wouldn't expect anything less from him. So we have a good relationship in that, we're kind of mates, but equally, when we need to get down to business, it's kind of like, let's do it sort of thing. So I think credit to him, he's got that balance really, really well. And it's not just myself, it's different athletes. He works with them in different ways based on who the athlete is and, I guess how long they've been working together and how they respond. And it's not, I guess that's something that I've tried to do in my own coaching, where it's not just necessarily reading a plan out of a book. You're coaching the athlete, and it's different ways of coaching different people, which I'm sure, is exactly the same. And I think Steve's got that done really, really well.
Yeah. And one thing I found really interesting, we spoke off the podcast, was the amount of athletes that wear the team New Balance Manchester kit that also step into the Great Britain kit. It's unbelievable. I think it's well, besides Adam Craig, which he was going to get a GB vest at the Worlds if he was first reserve for Worlds, so he was there to get that GB vest, and he probably definitely will represent GB on the track very, very soon. But every athlete's represented GB from the male side. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I think that's sort of testament to the work that the guys have done, putting the team together and the environment they've created. It's not just Steve, it's Pete Riley as well, New Balance, and they've created like a really strong mentality, really good team, and feeling. Everyone's supportive of everyone, and I think that kind of helps raise the standard of, I know it does for me. I want to run well as part of the team as much as I do for myself, and I think that's something that those guys are kind of instilled in us. We're there for each other, but we want to perform, and I think that's why we are competing on such a high level. One of my good friends, Ben Russell, said once, it's great if one of your athletes in the team is at a race, they're always going to be near the front and they're always going to be challenging for a win, no matter what the race is. And he's bang on. That's kind of what we want. That's what the team wants. That's what the brand wants. That kind of stuff as well. So long may it continue, I guess.
Yeah. And quick question: How did Team New Balance Manchester become an idea and then become an actual physical club?
I think you've just put your next guest up, haven't you? Really? Yeah. I think you need to get Steve on. Get him on. It was always Steve and Pete's dream to have a professional team. From when they were competing and that kind of stuff. Then obviously Pete got the job at New Balance and obviously brought Steve in to help. And from there, yeah, it was always their sort of their dream, I think, to have a professional team. And then obviously I was coached by Steve before the team, and he sort of said, would you be interested in moving over and being part of it? And obviously jumped at the chance, so I moved over to be part of Team New Balance Manchester. I just wish they'd called it something different. Team New Balance Northwest, perhaps.
And then talk to us about the setup as well. You've got an athlete house, and there's Team New Balance Manchester athletes there. I know that you're not in the house anymore, but back in the day, were you in the house with the team, and Steve would then come and oversee the training and cycle beside you and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah. So I was in the house until end of 2017. I only live just over a mile away from the house now, so we run a lot of the times from the house. So we'll meet up and run together. So most of the time, Steve's still pretty fit. Despite what he tells you, he runs a lot as well. He's putting the work in. So he quite often runs with us, certainly on easy runs, and then for sessions and things like that, he'll jump on the bike. But yeah, it's kind of nice because you've got like a base. It's almost like an office, I guess. That's where we work. That's our athlete base. So it's good, but it's a home for those guys as well. And I think it's good living with other runners, especially when you're that a little bit younger as well.
Yeah, keeping that accountability.
Exactly. Yeah. Keeping young Adam Craig in line.
That's it. Good man. And you've said that you felt that you were in shape to run the Olympic qualifying time. What was your build like for the Seville Marathon? What was your average weekly mileage, your longest run, your key workouts? was it a perfect build, or was there any ups and downs along the way?
For me, there's no such thing as a perfect marathon build up. Just not. You're going to have ups and downs along the way. You're going to have sessions where you just bonk. There's no such thing as a, and that's why probably one of the reasons why I love it so much as well. Because you're constantly up and down. You're tired. You know, some days when you can't get yourself out of bed because you're just that knackered. But yeah, in terms of the actual Seville training, it went well. I can't think of too many days that I missed during the build up. I was a little bit ill over Christmas, New Year, like a lot of people get. But again, I probably just missed 2 or 3 days, which was enough probably just to freshen me up, to be fair. Because then I went away in January to Albuquerque with the boys, and I think that's probably just enough just to kind of just refresh a little bit and then allow me to kick on again. So yeah, like in terms of weekly mileage, I think one thing, I probably didn't run as many miles for Seville as I have done previously for some of my other marathons, but what I did do, I put a big block of maybe 10 weeks of probably 100 mile a week average, you know, which to get that sort of consistency in over such a long period, that's big. So I think that set me up nicely for it, rather than going to maybe the highs that I've been to before, because I remember running like 125, I think it was, for Berlin last year as kind of like a peak week. Whereas for Seville, I don't think I went over 120 miles. You know, there's obviously a few in the teens, but no higher than that. So, yeah, I think it went well without going amazingly well. You know, there's a lot of sessions I remember feeling tired and just taking the work off, just getting it done and just taking another one off in the bank rather than smashing anything out of the park. But again, for a marathon, I guess that's important to do that as well. Rather, you know, it's not like 5K, 10K where you're ripping stuff on the track. It's totally different. So in that respect, it probably was what you would class as a perfect build-up. But as I said, there is ups and downs along the way.
Yeah, and what would your longest run be in your marathon build?
I'd do 2 or 3 at 24 miles.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go any more than 24. I just think the sort of the cost of that, you know, you're just knackered for, you know, good few days if you go over 24 miles. I think the rewards probably, I just think the risks outweigh the rewards. So for me personally, I know some people do and run well off it, but 24 miles is the maximum I'll go to.
Yeah. And will you use them as like your session day? Will you make that like 24 mile like long run day in place of a training session, or will that be sort of, you'll have your, you know, how would your week be made up, like a Tuesday, Friday, Sunday long run? And would you supplement if you're say to do, you know, wave threshold, K on, K off, would you extract that and then put the 24 mile run in there?
It depends, and we have done it differently in different build-ups. Yeah, I would follow the Tuesday, Friday, Sunday until a certain point, but then I find that then I actually drop down to just 2 sessions a week, lots of running, and then that session, as you say, would be something like the K's in, K's out, and that would be like a midweek Wednesday. But again, we wouldn't be against doing that over a weekend, so there's quite a lot of flexibility in the plan in the week. You know, traditionally, yeah, long run on a Sunday, and then maybe intervals of some sort on a Wednesday when we're in the key marathon phase. But that's not to say we wouldn't do it slightly differently. I think, in fact, Albuquerque, just because Steve's, you know, got the whole group out there, like on a Monday, me and Ross Millington would go long. We'd then maybe do intervals on a Thursday, and then I think we were doing something like steady state on a Saturday. So it was all kind of over the place, but that maybe to fit in with other people in the group, so Steve could spend time with different people on the bike and whatnot, wherever he needs to be down the track with the track guys. So yeah, we're quite flexible. And also, if we were feeling tired one day, then we maybe put back a day. You might put the session back a day. And I guess that's obviously the luxury you can have as a professional athlete. But yeah, I think it's probably just really long-winded answer there to your question. But I guess in this key marathon phase, Sunday long run and a Wednesday marathon type session, yeah.
Oh, right. So that's really interesting. So is that when you're getting closer to the marathon that you're starting to do just a Wednesday and a longer session on the weekend?
Probably about 6 to 8 weeks out. Yeah, probably about 6 weeks out.
Yeah, because I guess one thing that a lot of people maybe are scared to do, like you're just saying there, is a lot of people love this whole, you know, this like sort of discipline of Tuesday, Friday, Sunday, and if anything moves, then their mind goes a bit nuts. And I bet you've got it maybe with your clients that you're coaching. I'll have it with my clients that I'm coaching as well. And when we talk about things that the training plan isn't set in stone, and your muscles don't have brains.
Yeah.
They don't know what day it is. They just exert force and that's it. So, you know, it's really good to hear from a top level athlete who's ran the Olympic standard, talking about having flexibility in your program and flexibility in your approach to be able to, you know, achieve your optimum performance for race day.
Yeah.
You know, just like when we were talking about the build, what is your, if we sort of fast forward from the build and you've ran your marathon, what would your recovery look like? What would be your sort of recovery strategies after the marathon?
So, like, I normally take a week off after the marathon. Steve sometimes keen to get me running earlier than a week, but it actually depends. Just some marathons I ran after a week. I can't remember which one it was now. It might have been New York. I was a bit beat up after New York. Maybe a little bit longer. I didn't even feel like running, so it's kind of one of them. It's like no pressure from Steve. It's like, run when you want to run, but I would like you to do this because I think it's good to keep moving. So it's normally when you come off a good marathon, you just want to get back out there. But I think you need a week at least of, if that's maybe like 3-4 mile jogs, getting out on the bike, you know, really low intensity. But again, everyone's different. I think Alison Dixon takes 2 weeks off after a marathon, doesn't run for 2 weeks, which I think is great. But if I personally did that, I'd just stiffen up and I'd get injured somewhere else. So
yeah,
it depends on how you come off the marathon, how beat up you are and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it'd be a week of very, very little running, and then a week of probably running daily, building the frequency back up, but, you know, still keeping the runs relatively short and obviously easy pace and stuff like that. And then maybe by the third week, if all's okay and there's no injuries, probably look at start doing strides before getting back into, you know, lower volume sessions that fourth week after the marathon in the perfect scenario.
Yeah, that is, you were very, I like that bit where you said about if you take too much time off or when you get too stiff, injuries can actually come into place, even though you think that you're recovering. Your body's so used to being daily running that your Achilles, your plantar, these sort of tendons want to have that force come through them. And when you move into that fourth week, are you looking to maybe start a little bit of faster work, maybe 10k pace efforts, and reduce the distance just to try and build that sort of, basically spike your physiology again by, you know, sharpening the body, sharpening the muscles that have maybe been a bit dampened from the long miles and the long efforts from the marathon?
Yeah, I think so. A different stimulus for sure, you know, because I think, yeah, you've just been doing lots of long, slow miles, so definitely kind of waking yourself up again. Quite often we'll go into like short hills as a phase of hills and things like that. But like, I'm notorious in the group, we have a saying, fresh off the marathon. So I'll whinge at the guys for a good 6, well, as long as I can really, afterwards say, well, I'm just recovering from a marathon and stuff like that. So I think like, you've got to change the stimulus, you've got to mix it up, even if that feels tough at the time, which it always does, and you feel so unfit, but you're not, you're really fit, you've just done a marathon, like, you know, you just ran 2:10, but 4 weeks later, oh, by God, you know, doing efforts feels really, really bad. So, yeah, again, like everything though, everyone's different. Some people can get back into racing so quickly and fly, and I'm like, how have you done that? But, you know, you just got to do what works for you.
Yeah, like was it Chris Thompson? He came off a marathon and then ran an absolute blinder at Parliament Hill in the 10k when he qualified for the European Champs.
Yeah, he kicked past me 300 to go, I think. So
yeah, so it's crazy how people respond from, you know, 26.2 miles and getting back into 6.2 miles.
I've had clients and they've said, "Can I run a 5k next weekend?" I'm like, "Really?" And they're like, "Yeah, I really want to do it." And I'm like, you know, go on then, whatever, if you have to. And they go and do it and they fly. I'm like, how? Like, but you know, it's up to them, innit? But yeah, some people can run really well off it. But I think you've always got to remember that the training is in the bank and you can build on that down the line. You know, it maybe just needs a bit of fine tuning, adding a bit of speed work, but that endurance that you built up over the 3 months that you trained for a marathon, you know, it's there, and you just got to kind of bring it out the right way.
Yeah, brilliant. And then, you know, we've talked about, you know, you struggling after the marathon with the speed work, which, you know, if we you know, reverse back to your, you know, early senior years and your under 20, under 23 years, it would lead me to believe that you've got a lot of great leg speed. I know that the marathon, absolutely different beast, but, you're a sub 4 miler, 3:58 for the mile, and you've got 3:41 1,500 metre leg speed. What made you make that transition between going from middle distance running to the marathon? What was it? What was in your your coach or your plan to go, right? Are we going to move to the marathon, or are we going to stick with middle distance? What sort of changed your approach?
I think probably a variety of reasons, to be fair. I ran New York half marathon 2012, and that was my first half. I'd only ever done like 10 miles at the Great South, and I loved it. I had a great experience, ran well, and I come away from that thinking, I think I fancy a marathon now. I didn't actually end up making my marathon debut for another few years as it happened, but that kind of planted the seed for me. I think I was also ready for a change. I'd done a lot of track over a number of years, and I just fancied a new challenge. And I think also, I ran 13:31. I think I probably could have ran quicker because that wasn't a great race that I did it in. Could have ran 13:20 maybe, but I don't think I could run any quicker. And these days, that's not going to get you anywhere. You might not even make a GB team with 13:20 these days. And I think I just thought, now's the time to move up while I'm still young enough, I guess, as well. I've still got a few years left, because I just think some people sometimes leave it too late. There's obviously an argument for going too young as well. But I think I got to the point where I felt like I'd reached, not my potential, because I still think over like 10K I can go faster, but certainly over like 1,500 and 3K, I'd kind of achieved what I wanted to achieve. I don't think I could have gone much quicker. So I was ready for just moving up and trying something different. And once I'd done my first marathon, I was hooked, and I loved it.
Yeah. And you spoke about, do you feel you've got unfinished business there with the 10K? Are you wanting to still bring that down, or are you, what's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, 100%. Like Adam Craig's run faster than me, so.
He's got the bragging rights in the team just now.
Yeah, definitely. I think 10K is probably, I know it's all relevant, but it's probably my weakest PB. I know it's still a strong time, but I'd like to get closer to 28 minutes. And I was hoping to do Highgate this year, but that's not going to happen. So yeah, I definitely feel like I could run faster over 10K, and I just hope I get the opportunity at some point. Yeah, I'm getting old. Yeah, look at Chris Thompson. So
that's it. And again, you never know with we talk about the timing and opportunities and luck and all these sort of things, but you've run a huge personal best over the marathon, which leads you to believe that you've got so much strength in the bank that if you just sharpen that up, you're gonna be formidable over the 10K. Like Callum Hawkins coming off the marathon and then running 28:02, I think he ran, Scottish record. The same thing, like just sharpen your tools up and you'll be flying. And your first marathon, 2015, Frankfurt, 2:16 debut. I'm looking at that going, that's impressive. I mean, what was your thoughts for your first marathon?
I'm going to say mixed. I wanted to run faster, but I think at the time I was disappointed, and maybe now when I look back, I think, 2:16 is a good debut. But when I look back now, I was so naive. I still had so much to learn, and I feel like I've done 8 marathons now, and I feel like I'm still learning about the distance.
Right.
So I know fueling was a big issue back then, so I feel like I've improved so much, obviously, with the times. But I think, it didn't put me off. It didn't dampen my experience of it and stuff like that. And I was hungry for more after that. But I suffered bad injuries after that first marathon, so I didn't actually run another marathon then until 2017, I think it was. So yeah, but as experiences go, and that's another really good marathon, Frankfurt. Nice, it's good flat course, dead easy to get to again. And then the finish is really cool. You finish like inside like a concert hall, I think it is, and you have red carpet and flashing lights and stuff like that. So it's another good marathon to put on the list.
Yeah, and your first marathon, were you prepared to embark on that 26.2 mile sort of suffering? Was your body ready to go? Was your mind, did at any point during the race were you thinking, oh man, like this is, I know it was going to be tough, but I didn't know if it was going to be this tough or this painful, or your legs, your muscles starting to really ache?
I think I just wasn't ready for the different type of hurt. It's a totally different ballgame to like hurting over 3K. You know, that it's just different, and I don't think I expected it to be so different. And I think I was probably expecting to be more like a half marathon, and it just wasn't. So I think I was ready to hurt, and I was expecting it, but I didn't know quite how it was going to feel and how different it would be to the shorter distances, to be fair.
Yeah, and if we sort of look at 2015 Jonny Mellor, and we now look at 2020 Jonny Mellor, has your marathon preparation blocks completely changed from 2015 to 2020? Are they still similar, but you're running a lot better in the blocks? Like, is there been things that have been dramatically changed? So from your first marathon to the last one, have you implemented different things now than what you did in 2015?
I think so, yeah. And I think the sport has moved on a lot since, even 2015. I think, it's obviously times have just kind of gone through the roof. Things have got a lot faster, so I think you have to train differently as well now for it. I think back in the day, some of the boys maybe go Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and then just time on your feet, long run. And I think I did a lot of that for Frankfurt, maybe a Tuesday, Friday, long run Sunday. And the long run was just a long run, just time on your feet. And I just think the marathon's moved on so much, and you've got to do more than just run long. I think you've got to run it progressively, that kind of stuff, add efforts in if you have to. And I just think, yeah, I've definitely changed as an athlete. I think as well, I was probably more track runner having to go at a marathon then, whereas now I feel like I am a marathoner. So yeah, definitely for sure. I think I imagine a different engine now as well, sort of, physiologically I've changed as well since back then.
Yeah, and has your average, so say like a lot of runners kind of calculate their average mileage over the marathon block, and they might say, oh, I done averaged 80 miles for this marathon block, and then in my second marathon it was maybe 87 miles and I ran quicker. So there's maybe a link to being, right, well, if I can maybe get to 90 miles average and, make sure the sessions are good and my runs are good, then I can see another progression. Has your training also, your average weekly mileage, have you sort of incrementally put it up each marathon block? Besides, obviously, I'm guessing Seville there.
Yeah, not each marathon block. Definitely since the first one or two, probably. Because I don't think I even ran many weeks over 100 miles for Frankfurt. But that's not to say I don't think you can run a good marathon off that. Someone like Andy Davies is a prime example of, he doesn't run, he might run over 100 miles a couple of times in his build-up. So he's not running big miles. I think it also changes with age, and I guess you're running, how long you've been running for. You've got years of that conditioning, that background in you, so you probably don't need to run as many miles now. So I think it all depends on where you're coming from. But also, the first marathon, you want to give yourself somewhere to go. If you go right up to 120 miles a week in your first marathon, where are you going from there? You've got to give yourself somewhere to progress to. Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, and so one of my, from a personal standpoint of, when you're a track guy and you move into your marathon phase, and then when you're a marathon guy now moving into your marathon phase, I can remember the first couple of sessions that my coach set me as a track guy going into the marathon. Like, say it might have been, 5 times 3 miles with 90-second recovery, and run them at 5:20 pace, so 2:20 marathon pace. And I literally thought I was jogging. It was amazing. But see, when now I've done no track stuff and then I move into a marathon block, those paces just feel a lot tougher to hit from the onset than they did when I've transitioned from track to marathon. Do you find the same, or are you quite good with the sort of the marathon transition again?
No, definitely. And that's again another thing, like, credit to Steve, where he won't let me get slow. Like,
right.
When I did New York 2018, in 2018, we had a summer on the track, and that's why another reason why we did New York, just because we wanted a bigger window to actually have a track season in between marathons, because I felt like I was becoming slow, I was becoming one-paced, and you need to still basically be a turbo diesel. You don't want to just be a diesel engine. You need that turn of pace because, again, going back to what I said before, the marathon's moved on. You need to be fast. So we'll keep in touch with faster stuff during our build-ups as well, just to keep that turnover there, and also, you know, to make that marathon pace feel easier. Because I just think if that's feeling fast for you, then you're gonna have to maintain that pace for 26 miles. It's a long way. So the faster you can get, and I think, I can't remember who told me now, but if you can almost arrive on the marathon start line in 10k PB as well, or certainly 10k PB off a couple of weeks of sharpening up, then you're in a good place.
Yeah, no, good man. That's some good advice for the listeners as well, to not be scared to maybe pull out a marathon session, a big marathon session, and maybe put in a 10k session instead, just to get those fast twitch muscle fibers switched back on. And you know, you've ran London quite a few times. What is, you know, you've ran Seville, you've ran Frankfurt, you've ran Berlin, London Marathon. You know, what is London like? If people have never ran it before, you know, you've run it a few times. What is the London Marathon like? You know, the fans, the crowd, the support, the energy. Tell us about your experience for the London Marathon.
You just answered my question. All of those things. No, it is great. And like, I remember people telling me about London. You watch it on TV, and I think, yeah, sounds good. Is it as good as a 3k indoor? You know, but it is. It's every bit as good and better. You know, I think I've been lucky to do some really good marathons. London's obviously definitely up there for me. Not sure if it's my best, but it's up there. I think from a British perspective, as a British athlete, it's amazing because you just run along and people are shouting your name and things like that, and it's like, wow, this is amazing. You know, honestly, you go around like Cutty Sark and things like that, and your hairs stand up on the back of your neck because it's just so loud and it's so like good, and just think, hold back, don't get carried away. But it's definitely a special marathon. I think obviously all the landmarks you go past and things like that, you do take it in. Maybe that's the key. A marathon like Seville, where you don't have as much to look at on the way around, but I don't know. It's no, London's special, and all the hype, all the build up to it, all that kind of stuff. You know, I think because you're doing the build up with so many other people as well. You ask people, you know, what you're training for? Yeah, training for London. You know, and even if you're not training for London, you're training for Brighton, you're training for Manchester, and everyone's kind of building up at the same time. So it's exciting. It's a buzz for everybody. Not, you know, you maybe don't get that as much with other marathons, but yeah, the whole of London is just fantastic, and everything about the whole weekend is really good as well. And I think for me now, the New Balance perspective, it just makes it, I don't know, that everyone's sort of really focused on it and really dialed into London, so it makes it even better, I think.
Yeah, and the London Marathon, you're if we compare them in terms of like the course, in terms of its fastest course comparison to Seville, do you feel that it's harder to run a quicker time on London, but do you also feel that the crowd maybe lift you with your adrenaline to help you still get more out of yourself, even though people sometimes say it's a little bit of a slower course, but man, the crowd gets you around there?
Yeah, it's a great point. Because I agree totally. I think there's faster courses out there, but you don't get that sort of level of support that you would elsewhere. So yeah, it's a great point, and yeah, you're probably right. You're probably bang on there.
Yeah, and what if we look at? I think a lot of listeners will be really intrigued to you're talking about fueling strategies in 2015 to now 2020, and I saw a really good video of you with OT on a treadmill at one of the universities and testing their carbohydrate, and you know how you would digest it and utilize it and things. What's your sort of fueling strategy for a marathon?
Yeah, so I use OTE super carbs. I will have that before the race, and then I will have it every 5k during the race. So really simple. Tried so many different things over the years, and I just can't get enough fuel into me. You know, it's all me. I don't take enough on, and Steve be banging on at me. You need to take more because you're going to crash. You're going to hit the wall. And I always think, I'm getting enough on. It doesn't feel nice when you're running at pace to, you know, take the fuel on. So it's something I've had to work really, really hard on. And I think, you know, that's why I knew I had that time in me if I could get the fueling right. You know, everyone's different. Some people can take it on dead easily and straight away get loads of fuel into them. I struggled and I found it hard. I still do. And even I think in Berlin I got a bad stitch at 33k, I think it was something like that, and I was kind of on for the time there, got a bad stitch and suffered home, and that's happened to me a few times now in London last year as well. And then I started to get another one at Seville around the same point, and I was like, oh, come on, not again. But it didn't come on as bad. So yeah, it's tricky. You've got to find again what works for you, and you've got to try it in training. You've got to practice it in training. You've got to get your stomach used to taking it on board. You've got to get your stomach used to absorbing it. So you've really got to be practicing. If you're not lucky enough to have someone on a bike with you, if you're doing loops, maybe around like a loop where you can leave a drink by your car, that kind of thing. Practice with the gels that you're planning on using on race day. I've tried gels, but for me, I found the drinks more effective. And when we were doing the lab testing in John Moore's, we found that I could actually absorb more carbohydrates using the drink than I could gels.
Right.
So that's another reason why I chose to use the drink. But again, there's always a risk of you missing your bottle, that kind of thing as well. So I do carry gels with me in the race, just in case I miss a bottle. So I can have a gel then as well.
Brilliant. And that testing, is that just part of OTE, or can certain universities, can you purchase to do that carbohydrate testing?
I'm sure you probably could if you got in touch or you had a contact at a university close to you. Then yeah, it wasn't like an OTE. I used to go to John Moore's University, so I think that helps with myself obviously. And OTE are just a fantastic company. I'm not just saying that, but really good company, hands-on. They want to help the athletes, take the next level, achieve what they want to achieve. So I think it all fitted quite nicely for me, and obviously being a former John Moore's University student, massively helped.
Brilliant, good. And also, people will be wondering what your race day shoe is as well. What shoe do you like to race in, and what shoe did you race in for the Seville Marathon?
Yeah, I wore the New Balance Fuel Cell TC. So yeah, it's a good shoe. I wore it for Alsager 5 miles, and then I wore it for the marathon itself. So yeah, I try and save it for race day if I can. But yeah, no, before that I was wearing New Balance 1400, which is obviously a great flat for. You could wear it 5k all the way up to marathon. It's just such a good all-round shoe, really. So yeah, it's some good shoes out there at the moment.
And do you were saying there you only use the fuel cell a little bit before the marathon, but if you have the shoe longer, will you do maybe specific marathon sessions in your racing flat before the marathon, or would you like to save it and get that sort of nice, could you say, like the way track spikes feel from racing flats to track spikes when on competition day? Do you like that sort of feeling?
Yeah, I do like that sort of feeling. So maybe the really key sessions I will. But yeah, there's something about getting to that start line and putting on your race shoes. I think I don't know, there's just something about it for me. But also, obviously, all the talk with carbon shoes, we don't know if wearing them all the time is deconditioning your body and, that kind of stuff as well. So we don't want to use them all the time. We want to make sure we are using normal shoes as well.
That is actually, I think a lot of listeners will replay that phrase, what you just said there. Like, that is really interesting, because you just see every man and their dog now wearing the Vaporfly with a carbon plate and thinking that it is going to enhance their efficiency and their biomechanics, but to a point, because it's aiding, it could be deconditioning in the other sense when you're. Yeah, that's a really cool point. Like, thanks for sharing that, Jonny.
Oh, no, because the shoes could be doing a lot of the work for you. You just don't know. So, I'm no scientist, I'm no expert, but that's kind of what I believe in.
Yeah, and then what's your plans? I know we touched on it at the start a little bit, but what's your plans going forward? Have you and Steve discussed? Will you move in your next race? Will it be a marathon? Will it be a half marathon? Will it be a 10k? What's your sort of thoughts when the racing schedule opens back up? What are you sort of targeting?
I mean, in an ideal world, the plan was to race Highgate this year, and I wanted to do a fast half. But at the moment, obviously, that's not going to happen. So I think I go back to the start. I think it will be a marathon my next race, just because we'll see. I just don't know. If there's a chance to race between now and then, I would obviously want to, because I enjoy racing. It's why you train. At the end of the day, we train to race. I've always raced quite a lot. I enjoy racing for my club, that kind of thing. So if I can race, then great. But I think it could well be London, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Longer term, I say, it all depends what happens next year, really, for me.
Yeah, so there was a few. I think it was the Hawkins brothers were talking about maybe if the window for the Olympics opens back up in December, they were thinking about targeting maybe Valencia.
Yeah.
Is that something that you and Steve have spoke about as well?
I think at the moment, London, because I've got the time, so
Yeah.
I've got the time, so I don't necessarily need to chase the time again because my time is within the window. But yeah, I think if I didn't have the time, then yeah, something like Valencia within the window would work well for me.
Yeah, brilliant. And the last question is for the listeners. You know, they'll be sort of sitting on the edge of their seat wanting this piece of advice from you. But what would you give aspiring athletes looking to start competing in the marathon? What piece of advice could you give them?
Put me in the spot now. I think the big one, like for me, is enjoy it. Like, I know that sounds so cheesy, but embrace the new challenge, enjoy it. Do it progressively. Don't go, right, I'm jumping up, I'm doing a marathon now, so I need to go from running 80 mile a week, which works for me, so I need to go and run 110 mile a week. You know, don't make any massive jumps. Start putting more emphasis on your long runs. Don't push it too early. You get carried away far too easily in a marathon build-up, and you know, you could have run your marathon 2 months into your build-up. So I think you've got to have a different approach. You've got to be a lot more patient in the marathon than you have with track running. And yeah, just enjoy it, you know, and find people to run with, because obviously you've done a lot of miles on your own, solo. So having a bit of company, get you through those rough days. If you can get someone on the bike with you, obviously that's a big help as well. But yeah, I think probably the take home for me would be enjoy it and be patient, because it's a long way to go.
Brilliant. Before we go, I just want to thank you for giving up your time to come onto the podcast and share your experience with the marathon and your knowledge as well with the listeners. But what we've got is a wee quick power question round where I'm going to ask you a couple of questions and you're just going to fire the answer to me as fast as you can.
Yeah.
All right. So you ready?
Yeah.
Favourite food?
Pizza.
Favourite running shoe?
Oh, New Balance 1080.
Favourite movie?
Wolf of Wall Street.
Nice. Good answer. Favourite TV series?
Friends.
Favourite origin of coffee?
Don't like coffee.
Oh, you're a tea man, aren't you?
Tea man all day long.
PG Tips, Tetley, or what's it? Yorkshire tea. Yorkshire tea.
Yorkshire tea.
Favourite place you've ever run?
Ooh, Emirates.
Favourite book?
Favourite book? That's not very quick, is it?
That's all right. Take your time.
Just looking at my bookshelf. Favourite book? Do you know what? It sticks in my mind. One that I really enjoyed was Charlie Spedding. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
Good. Split shorts or half tights?
Ooh, depends on the race. Split shorts now.
Yeah. Favourite athlete? Can be boxer, can be golf, it can be whatever, just athlete.
I get stick. Steven Gerrard.
Nice. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Where can people find you in terms of social media, your website? Let us know, and then I'll also put the links below in the podcast.
Instagram, J77NYY, and then website for me is www.jmcoaching.co.uk. I am on Twitter and Facebook, but I don't use it as much. So, yeah, Instagram or my website would be the best.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Jonny, for your time. And I cannot wait to see you out at London, you know, achieving the position that you need whilst you've got the Olympic qualifying time and booking your ticket to Tokyo.
Thank you very much, mate. Cheers for having me on.